Only gonna put it there.
All right. Oh, how's it? Okay, so now are we okay? Everybody can hear? All right. And I will be passing the microphone down to the candidates so that everyone will be able to hear. And if you can't hear at some time or another, just put your hand up and we'll adjust the microphone then. Okay, wow, this is a great turnout, and I want to welcome you to our first, I think it's the first, forum of declared candidates, Democratic declared candidates for the 24th Congressional District. This forum is hosted by the Town of Manlius Democratic Committee, and I am Nancy Durkin, Chair of the committee. Please, most of you noticed that as you walked in, there were sign-ups and sign-ins, and there was a petition over here for Hillary Clinton. Please feel free to sign anything that you feel comfortable doing. I know that as a committee chair, we're always looking for potential people out there who are willing to give up their time and talents to the Democratic Committee. Feel free to see me after this if you want to talk to me about any of these issues or anything that you might want to do for the town of Manlius. Sylvia, if you would raise your hand. Sylvia is the chairperson for the town of DeWitt. And Marty, would you raise your hand too for the town of Fabius, yes. So we have 3 chairs here if anyone is interested and comes for any of those areas. You can check us out on Facebook, and we also have a website, and there are blue cards over on the table. Take one with you when you leave, and it has my name and email, and it has our Facebook and website addresses on it. Okay, with us tonight are 3 Democratic candidates. They are in alphabetical order: Colleen Deacon, Eric Kingston, and Steve Williams. The form is going to run as follows. First, each candidate will have 10 minutes to introduce him or herself and talk about their background, reasons for running, qualifications, etc. I don't know, apple pie recipes, whatever you want to do, okay guys? After that, there are some prearranged questions that will be asked of each candidate. There will be a 2-minute response time for those questions. And then finally, we will have a 2-minute for closing and summary and basically why we should elect that person. After the forum, the candidates have graciously said that they would be willing to stay to answer questions, to talk to individuals, so feel free to come up and see them. Maybe if you would tell us who your campaign people are here too, in case they want to talk with them. Colleen, you want to tell us who you brought with you?
Erin Fleck is my campaign manager. She's over here in the brown scarf. If anybody's got any questions or concerns, talk to her. If you've got any compliments, talk to me.
And Monica Owens is my campaign manager, and Liz Gerace is my everything in terms of my finance and also doing all the policy work we need. And if you have any complaints, talk to them. Nice to say, talk to me.
I have 2 folks here. I have my campaign manager, Nicole Johnson, and I have my daughter, Jackie Williams, who's working on my campaign with me, thankfully. And you can talk to me about anything you want.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we're going to go in alphabetical order, so we'll be starting with Colleen. You can either stay where you are seated, or you're welcome to come up to the podium, whichever you go to do. Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Nancy, so much for organizing this event tonight. This is a great turnout and a great start for our many forums that I know we'll be having over the course of this campaign. I want to thank everybody here also for coming to hear a little bit more about each of us and about our campaigns. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Colleen Deacon, and I'm running for Congress because I have seen up close and personal how the issues in front of Congress affect real people. And I want to be a real voice for the people of Central New York. I grew up in Syracuse. Me and my brother and my sister all graduated from Nottingham High School. When I was young, my father lost his job, and my mother had to go back to work full-time to help support the family. My mom worked for the county government, helping people get off of off of welfare and into the job market, instilling in me the appreciation for hard work and the idea that if you struggle, you still have an opportunity to succeed. Seeing my mom run our household really made me the person that I am today. When I was 16 years old, that was my first day of work. I began working at the Nottingham, the retirement home on Jamesville Ave. And I worked in a grocery store, in a bakery, in restaurants after that. It was actually with student loans that I was able to pay my way through college, and I just paid off my student loans last March. After I graduated from Syracuse University, I was waiting tables for a living, and my job did not come with health care or sick time. So when I became pregnant with my son Adrian, I was forced to go on Medicaid. And I had to quit my job a few days before he was born and go on food stamps and WIC to keep us healthy. It was not an experience that I think is unique or a story that's unique, but it's a perspective that's not represented in Congress, and I believe that this needs to change. For the last 6.5 years, I've been working in Senator Kirsten Gillibrand's office, running her regional operation, being her top advisor in the region, working on all of the issues that matter to us here in Central New York, working to connect our small businesses with grant and loan opportunities, to help bring some federal monies back to the region, working to connect our veterans with local job opportunities, and working with our seniors to help them avoid financial scams and financial fraud. Prior to that, I worked for Mayor Driscoll for 6 years. I was his press secretary. So again, working on the issues that matter to us here locally, but also understanding government on all levels. I have been fighting for the issues that everybody in this room has been fighting on for the last 12 years, and I want to go to Congress to be a real voice for the people of this district. With manufacturing jobs continuing to leave this region for the past 30 years, we need to find a way to attract businesses and keep them here in this region. When I worked in Senator Gillibrand's office, I was able to work with our small business owners to help cut through some red tape, to keep costs down and bring good, quality, high-paying jobs to the region. I want to connect our universities with businesses to create meaningful apprenticeship programs that will put people directly to work. When I worked in the senator's office, I brought some federal dollars back to Onondaga Community College to help create an apprenticeship program to put people into training programs for job opportunities. And I know there is more work to be done, and I want to connect more universities with businesses to help create more jobs here in this region. Another issue that we see is the desperate need for real investment in infrastructure. Our roads and bridges and water and sewer pipes are crumbling, and the time to act is now. There are 305 structurally deficient or insufficient bridges within the 24th Congressional District alone. Congress just passed a 6-year infrastructure and transportation bill, but it's only funded for 3 years at baseline levels, so it does nothing to address our growing needs here in this region. This is not the private sector's responsibility. This is our responsibility. Government's responsibility at its most basic level, and we need to do absolutely much more to deal with this issue. When I worked in the mayor's office, this was a top concern of ours. This is a top concern of the current administration. On top of this, we see Congress giving tax breaks to huge corporations and the wealthiest individuals and doing nothing to fix our roads and bridges and keeping us in danger. You got me all caught up with that 5 minutes. And keeping us in danger. We need to do more for our infrastructure and our infrastructure needs. And when I go to Congress, this is something that I want to work on. Finally, as the vice president of my son's PTO, my son will be 13 in a week from today. I am a single mom. I see firsthand the value of a strong public education. And I see the challenges that our students and our teachers are facing. In order to attract businesses to this region, we need to have a strong, well-developed, trained workforce, and we need to make sure all of our children have the tools and skills necessary they need to be competitive in this growing global economy. We need to make sure we're providing the resources to our students and our teachers so that they can be successful. with an open presidential field and Paul Ryan and this Republican Congress continuing to take this country in the wrong direction, I know we will be successful in November. Central New York is a great place to live and work, and I want to go to Washington and be a true champion and a true voice for the people of Central New York. So thank you so much for having us. I'm looking forward to this forum this evening. Thank you all so much for coming, and turn over to Eric.
Okay, I forgot to tell the candidates that the timekeeper's over there, and if she's flashing cards at you, you know what you have to do, how much time you have. Okay, Eric Kingston.
Good evening. And thanks for being here. It's important that we're all involved in the democratic process, and we're here for that. My name is Eric Kingston. I've worked in public policy and in issues of economic security for my entire career. I am someone who's been in public service from the beginning for me, beginning with when I worked in civil rights as a young person, and continuing through my teaching, my research, my serving as staff to 2 presidential commissions on Social Security, one of them the Greenspan Commission in 1982, another a bipartisan commission that I was on because senior groups and unions wanted friends on the commission staff. I've also founded an organization called Social Security Works. It's an advocacy organization in Washington that is located at the national headquarters of the AFL-CIO. We received $12 million to build a national voice to protect against cuts to Social Security and to lay the foundation not only for not cutting Social Security, but talking about the economic crisis that young people have, facing lack of paid family leave, and facing a retirement income system that will not help them at this point to maintain their standard of living, dealing with the crisis that people in their 40s, 50s are facing about the retirement income problems that 2/3 are going to be facing as they move forward, and dealing with the needs of today's older people, and fighting back this notion that somehow we had to cut the cost of living adjustment. How many of you get Social Security, by the way? How many of you think you got a high inflation increase this year? You didn't get any, no. And you didn't, and the year before you got 1.7. Do you think that's based on inflation? No. No, we have a fantastic system. The system works, but the biggest problem is it isn't generous enough, and it's not doing enough to keep up with the cost of inflation. Unfortunately, there are people in Washington who actually think you were getting too much this year and too much next year. They want to cut the cost of living adjustment. That won't happen. We fought that down with some of the people in this room too, and getting a word out to people around the country that this is their system. They had to fight for it. So we built this system. It's built around and we've built this organization that I co-chaired, built around 300 national organizations, unions, women's organizations, disability, aging, and many others. And together we stopped these cuts and we laid the foundation for the arguments you're hearing in the presidential campaign that it's time to expand benefits. We're hearing that from Bernie Sanders, from Governor O'Malley, and from Secretary Clinton. We're hearing it's time to enhance benefits. We've worked to shift the agenda. And I'm telling this story because I'm passionate about changing things that affect human beings, that affect middle-income families, low-income families, higher-income families. I'm passionate about having a society which is just, which gives everyone a fair shake, and today we don't have that. We have a society where the rules of the game have been tilted towards the most well-off, where the power in our society has been shifting to the most well-off, where elections are being bought by money, where campaign funds are determining elections. One thing I will promise you, I will not take any money from Wall Street. I'll promise you something else, though. It wouldn't give me anything. It's easy for me to say. I will not take any corporate money either. And I will work like hell to change the system which is destroying our democracy. and I will work like hell to engage young people and let them know that they have to fight to maintain democracy. So that's a little introduction. I also want to say the other piece of, there are a few other things I would say. I'm a professor at Syracuse University, and most important, I'm a husband, and I'm a parent of 3 children. I've actually had the fortune of being married to 2 wonderful women, one of whom is here, my wife Nancy. Oh, she's gonna throw something at me. And also to my first wife, who we moved to Syracuse 18 years ago. She was diagnosed with advanced colon cancer, and we worked for 32 months to try to keep alive. She was an amazing person, but we weren't able to maintain that. I have 2 children through Joan. Joan and I have 2 children who are in their 30s, and we have 1 child. Nancy and I have 1 child who also lost her first father to cancer, who I've raised since she was 2 and she's 16 years old. And she would be here tonight, except she has a lot of homework, and she really did not want to be here. So, I've lived a number of things, including giving care and receiving care. I've talked and I've studied, and I've written about advancing public policy that affects the needs of all people who give care. We've taken care out of the giving of care in our healthcare system. I've worked on many things. I'm concerned where our country's going. I've said that, and we're seeing why it's going. I'm concerned, of course, about the loss of jobs, the disrespect we show to each other in the way that we deal with families who are working harder, longer, but are not sharing in the benefit of the growth of our economy. 30 years, from 1949 to 1979, 90%, the bottom 90% got 2/3 of the benefit of the growth and productivity in our society. Since then, the top 10% have gotten all of the benefit of the growth in our society, and our growth continues. Productivity improves. We can't sustain a society like that. We can't fix our bridges. We can't allow this group of people, and not that they're all bad people among them, but we can't allow billionaires, corporations to be people. We can't allow billionaires to control our politics, set the rules of our taxation, to make decisions about giving away, as Colleen said, our tax dollars upwards. We can't afford to have a Congress which does not believe in reproductive rights, that tries to defund Planned Parenthood. As much as it is true that these are personal and important issues, it's not something that government should get into between a woman and the decisions, the complex decisions that might be made. We also can't afford to leave low-income women from having that choice by keeping the Hine amendments, which prevents low-income women from receiving Medicaid assistance. So at all levels, we have a lot of work to do. I've fought for Social Security. I think I can say our organization, 1 minute, I'll sit very fast. Our organization stopped cuts to 152,000 people in our district to receive benefits. But it's not about Social Security. I'm a fighter. I've worked in Congress. I've never run for political office before. I'm not beholden to the Democratic Party. I'm not going to be beholden to other interests. I am beholden to a sense of decency and responsibility to others. Let me just stop with that.
Oh, Steve, go ahead.
Thank you.
Hello, folks. I'm Steve Williams, and first let me thank you for coming out, and I want to thank my opponents for running. This is not an easy task, and I think the fact that you all have so much choice this year is fantastic. Choice is good, right? Choice is good. All right. Now, let me start by telling you a little bit about me and who I am. I'm originally from the Buffalo area. My dad worked in manufacturing out there, and when he got laid off, he was lucky enough to find work in the Adirondacks, where he worked in a paper mill. So I spent many years in the mountains of the Adirondacks. He got laid off from that job, and he was unemployed for close to 2 years with 5 kids, 5 young kids. He was 52 looking for a job. He was my age, the age I am now. And those were some lean times. But he was lucky enough to find work at a mill in the Capital District area, so we moved down to the Capital District area. And I, quite frankly, didn't have the money to go to a nice four-year school, although I wanted to. I worked framing houses and went to Hudson Valley Community College. After Hudson Valley Community College, I went to Cortland State, right down the road, and I majored in political science, and I loved it. And I have to say, it was a life-changing event for me. Took some great classes there, and I was molded tremendously by some of the folks there. After graduating from Cortland, I went to work for the New York State Legislature. I went to work for the Democratic Party. I worked at House Operations Committee in the New York State Legislature, where I worked for various assemblymen. I wrote speeches, I did ads, and I supported Democrats throughout the state. After doing that for 2 years or so, I went to law school. And while I was in law school, got married, and my first of 4 children came along. And I have to say that my wife at the time, we were both in law school, working part-time, and quite frankly, we were broke. And like Colleen, we had to go on Medicare to have our first child. I don't really talk about that too often, but I think it is important to raise these kinds of things now so that you know that I've experienced some tough times. But after law school, I joined the Navy. My father served during World War II in the Navy, and he always encouraged me to serve, and I wanted to do my part. I served in the military for 8 years. I reached the rank of lieutenant commander. I served on active duty for 5 years. I've flown out to aircraft carriers. I've served on fast frigates. I prosecuted cases in the Navy against child abusers, child molesters, drug dealers. And I worked with an admiral to provide services to our servicemen and women so that they were ready to be deployed at a moment's notice. After leaving the Navy, I joined the Smith-Sobick firm here in Syracuse. And I've been working at the Smith-Sobick firm for 20 years. I have 4 kids now. Jackie's right over here. She left her job working for a not-for-profit that serves underdeveloped nations to volunteer on my campaign. I have my daughter Nina, who's a single mom, and she lives here in Syracuse, and my 2 sons, and they're both in college in Washington, D.C. Steve's actually in Honduras right now, building schools for Christmas break. That's his project. While being an attorney at Smith-Sobick, I pride myself at taking very novel cases. I take pride in representing the underdog. I've represented pension funds who lost millions of dollars in the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme, and I've won. I recovered millions for them. I've represented workers who weren't paid a fair wage under the Fair Labor Standard Act. I've represented people in defamation cases. In fact, I got the highest verdict in our nation's history when it comes to defamation cases. I represented somebody who was accused of being a terrorist in Syracuse shortly after 9/11, whose name was Osama. I couldn't get a haircut. My barber said, "You're representing that terrorist." He was not a terrorist. He was a good man. And I got him off on all charges. And he's now a U.S. citizen. But that case was a challenge. It was a big challenge. And I pride myself at being a fighter and winning. And quite frankly, that's what I want to do for this district. I want to fight for this district. And that brings me to the next topic. And that is, why am I running? You know, I've worked very, very hard. I came from some humble beginnings. I had student loans like you wouldn't believe. I can still remember the monthly payment when we first moved to Syracuse. $1,650 a month. It was more than the mortgage, plus the taxes and insurance. It was an albatross. Paid it all back. And I finally got into a place in my life where things are going well and I'm pretty comfortable. But you know what? It's a crucial time for our nation. It's a crucial time. The gap between the super wealthy in this country and the middle class has been widening steadily for the past 13 years. And that's the first time in our nation's history that that has happened. And let me tell you, and you know this, that's not happening by any accident. That's happening because of policies coming out of Washington, D.C. I want to go to DC and fight against those policies. I want to fight for policies that bring jobs back to America. And I mean real jobs. You know what I'm talking about. You know those jobs, the jobs we used to have, like General Electric, Syracuse China, New Venture Gear. The list goes on and on. We don't have them anymore. Now all we have are these service jobs where people make minimum wage. They work full time and they're still considered impoverished. That's not right. That's not the America I want to leave for my children or my 2.5-year-old grandchild. People who work full time should not be considered impoverished. Corporate profits are at an all-time record high, and wages are down, and they're continuing to spiral downward. And we know why that's happening. We have these free trade agreements with nations that intentionally manipulate the value of their currency down to put the American worker at a disadvantage. We can't compete with that. It's not fair, and we need to fight against it. You know, folks who work in the service industry making minimum wage, oftentimes their employers tell them, well, you're eligible for public assistance. Go get public assistance. So now what do we have? We have a society where the government is subsidizing the wages for the corporations. Why should the government be subsidizing the wages for the corporations? That doesn't make any sense. We need to raise the wages. We need to get the minimum wage to $15 an hour so that people are not considered impoverished, so that they can hold their head up high, so that they can have dignity, so they can be self-reliant. That will bring up the soul of the community. That's number one. Number two, it'll cut taxes because there will be less people on public assistance. But moreover, we need to fight to bring the jobs back to Syracuse. And I don't just mean the manufacturing jobs that have left. I mean the jobs of the future. We have to be forward thinking. We need to identify the industry of the future. We know what's coming. The governor sees this. He's been working hard on this through his Upstate Revitalization Initiative. Drones. He's investing our dollars to bring businesses here to work in the drone industry because drones aren't going away. That's a great idea. And we need to partner our universities with small businesses so that when folks go to a university, they know what classes they need to take to get a job here. I want to be an advocate for Central New York. I want to fight for you. I've been fighting my entire life. I've earned a great reputation as an attorney. I'm very proud of it. I want to set that practice aside, and I want to represent you in Congress. Thank you for coming up.
Hi, at this time we would like to move into our questions, and I seem to have lost my questions, so thank you very much. Okay, what we're going to do is we have some questions, and we will just pass the microphone down if that's okay, and each of you will have 2 minutes, and Joan will take care of that. Okay, so let me just get this out. Okay, some of you have already talked about some of this, but maybe we need to reiterate it again. What 1 or 2 issues do you think are most important to voters of Central New York? What is your position on them, and what will be your plan to work on them? And so we will start with Colleen, and then each question after that I'll move them.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I think the biggest issue that we find that we need to work on here is jobs in the economy. I think that's been told by all 3 of us here in our speeches here this evening, and I think that's a main concern that most of the voters have in this region. I think a way we can address this issue is by working with our businesses to develop training programs and workforce programs that work in-house. So we're actually training our workers within the companies and providing tax breaks for our businesses so that they get job-to-job training while actually working and not just having training programs without a job at the end of it. I think further I mentioned having job training programs with our universities and our businesses, but working with our businesses to connect them with the skills gap to see what skills are needed so we can work together and identify where the areas are that are lacking. Further, I think that we can look at our tax code and decide what we're doing for our businesses, making sure that we're not harming our small businesses so that they are able to hire people. I would also